For years, the hunt for seashells has been a beloved pastime for beachcombers like myself. And normally I would be showing you something that looks like this, and we would be looking for seashells for the next 30 minutes or so. However, the path of adventure has led me elsewhere this week. And instead of looking for seashells, we're going to be looking for shells from freshwater snails. That's right. You do not have to go to the beach to find shells. Now, since I've never done anything like this is quite exciting for me. And I found a lot of shells that I was looking for and a few surprises that I'm just so excited about. So join me as we trade seashells for apple snails and we embark on a Florida freshwater adventure. And if you're ready to see what's out there for us today, let's go to the marsh. That's right, people. We're not at a beach today. We are at Harms Marsh. This is a freshwater marsh, and I'm coming here specifically for apple snails. So I come over here, I kind of get my bearings. Okay, there's a little path that kind of walks around everything, but I do know I'm really kind of interested in the water because that's where the snails live. All right, note to self, don't go swimming. There could be alligators and venomous snakes here. So be careful. And I will admit, I don't do this a lot, so I was a little nervous. But I'm walking along a path that's kind of near the water. It's not that close to the water. And I see these mussels. And the nacre on them, which is that mother of pearl substance, is so vibrant. It's a little dirty, but they feel great. Like they're just kind of like this sturdy, iridescent shell. All right, there we go. That's an apple snail. That's what I was expecting, but it was interesting to find those other mussels. I wasn't really expecting those, but since they're so shiny, I'm pretty psyched about it. Now, a lot of the stuff I pick up, I'm going to pick up more than I really need because I don't know how these are going to clean up. So that's Harms Marsh. I will be back here. I had enough fun that I will definitely be back. Can't wait to share this whole. It really was so cool. So this is another apple snail. Yep, and that looks great. So I'm just hunting along paths. Oh, look at this one. Nah, I had to put the camera down. I needed 2 hands for that one. Now, what on earth? Oh, that's cool. Look at this curly, swirly shell. Oh, man, that's awesome. And what was the word? There was a word that kept coming to me as I was picking those up. It was totally wrong. If I think of it, I'll blurt it out at some point. All right, so that's really cool. I'm really into these curlicue shells. Oh, that's so neat. And the stripes and the cool colors and that. Oh, that is cool. What about you? All right, you're kind of devoid of color. You don't have as much color as I'd like. However, I'm going to be cleaning these and experimenting, so I'm going to need a couple extra test subjects. So again, I will be keeping a lot more than I really need to. You look pretty good. I'm not going to keep anything broken. I'm not going to keep anything that looks like it might be kind of dry. Oh, what do we have? Oh, that's broken. And that's the other piece of the broken shell. Okay. Here's a few more of those mussels. And at this point, I'm like, that one's very thin. Okay, so those shells get thicker as they get bigger because the first time I picked them up, they were nice and kind of sturdy. So I'm really kind of interested more in those sturdy, nacred mussel shells. And this twirly guy. Oh, it's so pretty. Another apple snail. Fantastic. Now, I do like these. I have gone near my home to look for apple snails, and it really wasn't like this. This is just kind of like near a culvert. And a lot of the ones that I typically find are kind of like this. They're a lot whiter. They're kind of dry, bleached out. So I'm kind of hoping to add ones that are the darker colors to my collection. So like this, yeah, I'm not going to keep that. Yep, easy enough for me to find. Yeah, it's too dry. I'm going to leave that. But I'm going to keep looking. So that's the goal, to find as many as we can. I'm going to go home and clean them up. So we're definitely going to clean this up at the end. Holy cow, it's so pretty here. Oh, now check that out. It's interesting how some of my knowledge from the beach is transferring over. That is an operculum. So that's the little trap door of the apple snail. Oh, good. Here's more. Okay, here's a few more of those kind of thin mussels. I don't really care for those. That is another, oh, I like rich color on that apple snail. Some of the stripes on it. Oh, I like this one. Yeah, that one's, it's got some oomph to it. I cannot wait to clean those up. So I was very, very excited about those. We got lucky. Beautiful day. So this is Harms Marsh, and there is a trail that kind of goes along. But for me, I'm really just interested in looking for those apple snails. And there is actually a bird I'd kind of like to see too. And the next time I come, I will specifically bring a garbage bag. There was a lot of garbage here. If you come here, this area could absolutely need your help. Had I known, I just would have brought more garbage bags. But I am picking up what I can to get it in, just get it out of the environment, get it into the garbage bags. Now, most of the snails that we're finding today are the invasive kind. The native apple snails reach about 2 to 3 inches. The invasive apple snails, well, they get up to about 4 to 5 inches. So when we're picking up these real big shells, I know that those are an invasive species. And we're going to talk more about that. And that also kind of ties into the bird that we're going to talk about as well. Is this stripy? Yeah, it's because those other dry ones that I'm used to, I'm very excited about, like the rich colors of these ones I'm finding. Oh, there's a bird there. That's an anhinga. And anhingas are special because they don't have oils in their feathers. They dive and swim. So when they go to dry themselves out, they kind of sit out and they spread their wings. Thank you, Houston Auto Blog, for kind of providing that picture. So that's an anhinga hanging out there. And I'm shocked at how beautiful this place is. This place is great. So again, I'm mostly kind of hanging out. There's no rack lines, but you can kind of see a path where the grass is worn down. People come here to fish. So I did run into another fisher person. So I'm looking. I'm not getting too close to the water because alligators, and we will talk about that as well. So when I do get closer to the water, I kind of make noise, check my surroundings, and make sure there's nothing's gonna pop out and get me, and I get my shell, and then I kind of back up again. So I'm just being aware of my surroundings and not hanging out too close to the water. It's fine. I'm not freaking myself out too much, but just it's smart to be aware of your surroundings. Now, this gentleman and I kind of chit-chatted for 2 seconds because he told me where to find the snail kites. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in finding some birds along with these apple snails. And I have a really remarkable story to tell you about the relationship between these invasive apple snails and the snail kites. But I'm going to wait. Hopefully we'll get over and maybe see a couple of them. Turkey vulture. All right. And you know what? Can you imagine how amazing their eyesight has to be to look for prey when they are all the way up there, like mind blown? I know they talk about eagle eyes and all that, but when you really stop to think about it, Mother Nature is absolutely amazing. So yes, I'm being treated at this lovely marsh. And at this point, again, since I've only been here, this is the first time I've ever been here. I will be back because I'm learning, and I'm going to tell you about all the stuff that I'm learning as I'm here as well. So I'm going to make my noise, stomp around as I get a little bit closer to the water, grab my apple snail. Oh, that one's real pretty. You've got some nice kind of colors on there, or at least stripes, right? And they're all muddy, so yeah, everyone's got to get cleaned at the very end of the video. And another likely, what's that? Oh, let's talk about that. So that's the operculum. Now, when you find the operculum next to the animal, chances are that animal was alive when it was eaten, and that's the way it has to go out in the wild. However, if you see the shell and the operculum out at a shop, that means that the animal was killed for its shell and the operculum. So I'm just very stringent about the way that I collect things. I like everything to be au naturel. So just if you see the shell and the operculum, think about where that might have come from. Now, I'm kind of hoping on these smaller shells that maybe I'll find a Florida, one of the natural Florida snails in here. And I'm going to work that out at the very end of the video once we clean everything up. That's another pretty one. I'm loving the stripes. Oh, that's so cool. And a little dry. Yeah, it probably won't. Oh, ants. Oh, okay. That just kind of makes me think. I didn't see any fire ants when I was here, but it's possible. So don't wear flip flops. I mean, definitely bring closed-toed shoes. I wore boots, and I will tell you about that as well. I knew a little bit better, so I'm wearing boots, not flip flops, to do this kind of muddy adventure. Yeah, this place is beautiful. So I am going to stay near the water. I'm not going to go off on that other trail. And these twirly snails, I couldn't stand it. I had to look it up. So these little twirly guys are called either giant or golden ram's horn snails. So I was quite excited about those. And since we're talking about identification, the invasive apple snails are the island apple snail, the channeled apple snail, the spike-topped apple snail, or the spike-topped apple snail, and the Titan apple snail. Why is that important? I wanted you to know. I thought maybe that was a spike-topped small apple snail, but turns out completely different species of shell. So totally different species. And yes, I was pretty psyched. Some of the stuff from the beach is definitely coming in handy. My shovel is one of them. This is dirty business, these apple snails. So I'm pretty happy that I had some equipment with me. Oh, check this one out. I was like, oh, that's so cool. It looks like an auger or a turret. It's not, because it's freshwater. I don't know, no clue what it is. I'll figure that out later. Same thing with that one. I'm just gonna grab a bunch of stuff. Now I do have my shell bag that I'm putting the garbage and the shells into, and then I had a spackle bucket in my trunk. So as I was collecting things, I was dumping it into the spackle bucket, so I didn't have to carry everything the whole time. They're pretty light though. Oh, that one's neat too. Now that's different than the other real tall one. See, that's a little bit more like that first one. It's like a honey hole. I can't tell. Maybe that's more like the first one. Yeah, there's another one of those fake spike-topped apple snails. That's not what it is. Dirty business, this stuff. It's quite dirty. Yeah, another one of those. And more dirt. Oh, look at that. It comes complete with a little plant in it. All right. And with the condition of the water, I was not really washing anything out. Oh, that's another one. Those are neat. So they have tinies here too. So in addition to the apple snails, we have tinies. We have the smaller ones. Oh, they're cool. Those are so cool. And now I'm getting all excited because like I said, I was expecting the apple snails, but not these other ones. Oh, those are so neat. What else? Yeah, another tiny one of those. And then I don't know what's going to survive either, because everything's got to get cleaned up. So I'm just kind of picking up everything. I'm not being too I'm being a little discerning, but not that discerning. And that one had a one in its aperture. Yeah, that's like a twofer. So I got to keep that one. That's kind of neat. And that one, I thought, ooh, that's a golden one. And as it turns out, the golden apple snail is also known as the channeled apple snail. So not a new one. It's still a golden or channeled apple snail. Pretty. Yep, another one. That one's going to be nice. Maybe. We shall see. Another one? Okay. Now, to me, it's not, I know I'm just picking up the same shell over and over, but I'm still very interested in the size, the condition, what color, does it have stripes? So I'm kind of in this like lower rack line for lack of a better term. Oh, you're stripy. You're very pretty. You are buried. I'm going to need to get my shovel. Oh, you came out. And check this out. Okay, that one. Oh, wow. Cool. Awesome. And then there was just a piece there, too. So I got my shovel out. And guess what? I can thwarted on land, too, just like I do on the beach. Just a piece. But I did loosen this one up. And for the sake of experimentation, I'm going to hold on to it. And because it was a twofer, kind of just feel like I have to keep that. Oh, yeah, I think they're pretty. You think they're pretty now? Wait till you see what they look like when I clean them up. It's all sandy, muddy, but they clean up pretty nice. These are the ones I'm really excited about cleaning up. I'm dying to put it in bleach. Will all of that, is it periostracum on the freshwater shells too? So I got to thinking about people who might go in the Great Lakes. at least you're going to have kind of like a beach and not mud, but you get to look for these kind of shells too. That is so cool. I'm freaking out at how cool. I can see the nacre on top of the shell. I just think that that is so cool. So I am very excited to get those home. Get those home and cleaned up. And it was also about this time I'm starting to kind of figure out, wait a minute, there's two different kinds of those shells here, because one of them is kind of thicker and one of them is kind of thinner. All right, so it doesn't have anything to do with the size. It's actually two different kinds of shells. Okay, got it. So the beach information is translating a little bit, and I was able to kind of untangle the fact that there's two different kinds of clams that I'm finding here. All sorts of different kinds of apple snails. Okay. I was like, okay, got it. All right, interesting. And it just made me think, if I didn't do my beach combing, I probably wouldn't have figured it out. I would have just been like, why is one thinner? I wouldn't have understood that it was two different species, because they look kind of similar, but they're not. Once you really kind of start looking. So these, I'm going to be looking at the aperture when I finally do try to figure out what they are. Kind of, yeah, peek by the water. Yep, that's one of those thin ones that, I mean, they're fine. Yeah, they don't appeal to me the way the other ones do. Yeah, you're muddy. You should come with me. All right, at this point, let's go find the snail kites. And I was kind of walking across this, I guess, like bridge, for lack of a better term. Turns out that back in the 1980s, this is about 570 acres of farmland, and it was transformed into an active stormwater facility. And they did that to help filter water and reduce flooding to the Orange River. So now this area controls stormwater. It creates a lush habitat for the snail kite, limpkins, and 140 other critters. So this is a really kind of neat place. You can go fishing. I'm here for the apple snails and the snail kites. So even though I'm thinking about the snail kites, I'm also still thinking about the alligators, because I'd love to go down the bank and kind of hunt down there, but not gonna do it. And let's talk about alligators for just a second. So since 2020, there have been 9 deaths attributed to alligators in the United States. Of those 9, 4 were in Florida. Of those 4, 2 people were walking their dogs next to water. One person got in the water and was retrieving their frisbee golf discs, and one woman was homeless, and the circumstances are kind of unknown. My point is, if you stay away from the water, you're probably going to be okay. You won't have any trouble from those alligators. So I'm going to hang out up here, nice and dry, still looking for those apple snails. I really wish I could go down there, but nope, not going to do it. Now, what I can tell you is I am a lot better looking for shells than I am for birds. It's just not my wheelhouse, and I didn't see any of the snail kites, but not to worry, you're still going to get to see them. My friend Karen is a photographer, and she allowed me to show you these amazing pictures of the snail kite. Now, let's talk about them for a minute. They're super duper cool. So these birds have made wetlands their home for a very long time, but survival has always been kind of intertwined with the apple snail. Now, snail kites eat almost exclusively the apple snails. The snail kite's numbers back in the 50s plummeted, and by 1967, the snail kite was put on the endangered species list. Now, remember we had talked about the apple snails. The native ones are only 2 to 3 inches, whereas the invasive ones are 4 to 5 inches. Those larger invasive snails played havoc on the native snail populations, and they also threatened the snail kite even further. Now, at first, the invasive snails were too tough, their shells were too thick for the kites to crack, but nature is a master problem solver, and over time, the snail kites began to adapt. Their beaks evolved, becoming sharper and more adept at piercing through that tough shell of the invasive snails. Now, some researchers at the University of Florida have reported that the average snail kite beak size has grown just 1 year from the arrival of the invasive apple snails. So they figured it out quick. The apple snails likely were introduced to the environment through the pet trade, which is a bummer, but they somehow helped the snail kite. I find that story to be remarkable, that generally we don't like to have invasive things here. But the fact that not a snail kite. Nope, probably a turkey, one of those turkey vultures. So I'm glad I didn't get to see any live kites, but I hope you now can understand why I kind of go a little bit gaga over those birds. They're absolutely beautiful, and their story. The fact that they're able to take advantage of these invasive snails and adapt and get bigger, that just mind blown. Mother Nature is awesome. Now, there were these other clam shells that were here that honestly reminded me of the cross-barred Venus clams, and they don't appeal to me, so neither did these. I didn't collect any of them. I just don't know. Those little clam shells, they just don't appeal to me. They're not shiny, and they don't have nacre, and I don't know. So they are little clam shells here. Those I didn't take. We'll do a switch. I'll leave that one. I'll grab this one. Fantastic. So basically the rest of the time I did kind of just wandered around just grabbing as much stuff as I can to come home and clean, although that might not have been the best plan of attack. Oh, all that nacre. Oh, it's so pretty. So yeah, I kind of wandered around. You don't have to go too far. I was really kind of sticking by the water where the parking lot, and so just kind of running around again, just kind of for the sake of experimentation. I don't know what's going to happen when I clean these. Something may break. I may want to test out a couple things. So I am just here just kind of grabbing a lot, and plus I've never seen these, so it's very exciting. I've never seen shells like this, and this is so pretty. Just an apple snail. There's another native snail to Florida. It is a land snail, and it has a very pretty shell. Maybe one day I'll go hunt those down too. But they have these Harms Marsh snails, really neat. Oh, loving the colors on them. And then just to further illustrate, you don't want to wear flip-flops and maybe not even sneakers. Like I said, I'm wearing boots. I sunk in over there, but I'm fine because I was wearing my boots. So this was Harms Marsh. If you want the address, it is in the description box below. Wear appropriate footwear, but overall, well, I guess I learned it really doesn't take all that much to entertain me. I had so much fun, and I'll definitely be back. All right, the hard stuff. I'm separating everything. So that's everything. And then that's the garbage. Now the garbage, it wasn't all that much. It ended up ultimately being about 0.6 pounds. I am not going to combine that with my beach garbage. I'm just going to do what I can here, and it is what it is. So I'm separating the shells, and they will need to get scrubbed quite a few times. So these have already been scrubbed once. They're going to hang out in some water. But cleaning these apple snails, man, it takes a minute. So these have all been scrubbed once. I'm going to allow them to sit, and then I'm going to scrub them again. Unfortunately, unlike sand, the mud, sometimes you really gotta kind of get in there and scrub it off. For example, this one, it might look kind of dry and crusty. It's actually just muddy. So what I have to go in and really kind of scrub that mud off. Yeah. So it's dirty. It's dirty work getting these shells, getting from that mud over to this. And I have a couple of tools. I use this. I actually need to replace that. It's some weird little scrubby thing. And then that I actually got a bottle brushes to kind of really get into those tiny areas. Now there are shells that aren't going to make the cut, and I'm going to donate their bodies to science. These, I will put a splash of bleach in there and see what happens. And then I'll continue to kind of mess around with those other ones. These, like I said, these have been scrubbed and they'll need to soak. But it's so exciting because I go out and I check on them. Okay, are you still pretty? Yes, you're still awesome. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to scrub them once again. But these, I was rather unimpressed. So these are the ones that donated their bodies to science. I put a splash of bleach in there. I'm just not impressed. So I'm going to take those mussel shells and I'm going to put those in 100% bleach. Yeah, everybody else, I'll just hang on to those. But you two test subjects, you are going to go hang out in 100% bleach. Now, after all is said and done, they've scrubbed a couple times. I'm going to let them dry because just like any of the other shells, the wetness, water will tend to make them look a little bit better than they would normally. So once all is said and done, they've been scrubbed. Now they're dried. Let's take another look. Now we did know, or I figured out that was a giant or golden ram's horn snail. So those were such a cool surprise. I really, really like those. These, I'm giving a big guess here. I'm about 95% sure that those are banded mystery snails. That is literally the name of them. Banded mystery snails. Now these, I think maybe a lot of them are channeled apple snails, but let's go through this together. Let's just kind of see. So I went over to the Florida Museum to get some information. It is not easy to find information about these snails. So this is the spike-topped apple snail. And after further investigation, I think I might have a couple of these. Look at the angle right here of where the kind of the aperture meets the shell. Now, on the native Florida apple snails, you don't have that like 90-degree angle. It just kind of slopes down. None of my shells did that. But this is the channeled apple snail. Some of them kind of look like this. I'm looking at where the shell and the aperture in this area kind of meets the shell. And some of the shells, as I'm looking through them, I think some of them might be spike-topped. Some of them might be channeled. Unfortunately, I don't think any of them are native Florida apple snails. That's kind of a bummer. These are all invasive, but as we've come to find out, it's good for these snail kites. Go figure, right? Didn't think I would be talking about something that's invasive and it being something positive for the environment. Go figure. So I do think I probably have some spike-topped and some channeled. I just don't know. It's hard to say, but overall, still cool experience. Now these, I really wanted to figure out what that was. Still a little dirty. I could probably clean that a little more. I don't know what that is. I could not figure it out. Like I said, just identifying shells in general is kind of difficult, especially if you only have a couple examples. I only really got one of those bigger shells. I got some of the smaller of the same thing. This one, yeah, I'm going to throw bigs. Don't know what that one is either. Neat though. I like the little kind of spiky things on it. It's a neat little shell. And then there is another little tiny one. Again, a big fat question mark. No clue. I just like the little pattern on it. Like even those have a little something on there. Yep, don't know what that is either. Now, I can't wait to show you. Look at the mussels. So these are the ones that were soaked in 100% bleach. Yeah. Yep. So those are test subjects. I really needed to scrub. So they sat in 100% bleach, and then I still needed to really scrub. I don't know. Is it considered periostracum on the freshwater shells too? I don't know. But I'm really excited at the way those came out, and I'll probably continue to mess around with the shells. So these are the ones that I'll hold on to for a little while. Not to say that I'll necessarily keep them. Maybe they'll show up on Etsy. Who knows? I know I threaten to do that a lot. But really fun experience. If you do go, and if I go back, I'm going to concentrate on the bigger ones. The smaller ones are a lot harder to clean with all that mud. So when I go back, I'm going to be looking for the big ones. But ladies and gentlemen, there are freshwater snails in Florida too. And it was pretty fun going hunting for them. Patreons, thank you so very much. And what I'm probably going to do with a lot of those shells that donated their bodies to science is I'm going to do little things with it, and I'm only going to post that on Patreon. I don't want to put everything onto YouTube because I actually am really interested in a lot of different stuff, and I don't think I use Patreon enough. So I will be trying to spend a lot more time over there posting things. Next week, we're going to low tide, Fort Myers Beach. We will see seashells, we will see a sunset, and we will see critters. So until then, I hope you have yourself a great week. I'll see you again next Sunday.